So on one hand, it can lead to efficiency of capital by making the company more productive. On the other side, it can be seen can overburden the company in terms of excess interest payment and thus affecting the profitability of the company. So leverage is the, it can tilt both ways. It is good as well as it has its own disadvantages. So some of the leverage ratios are interest coverage ratio. So high leverage company would obviously have a high interest coverage ratio. Why would a high leverage company would have a high interest coverage? The interest would be more. For a high leverage company, the interest would be more. So the coverage ratio might be less. So in case the company is highly leveraged, that means the company would has to pay a huge amount of interest. Debt to equity ratio, debt to asset ratio, and financial leverage ratio. So simple formulas helps to interpret how easily a company can pay its interest payments. Interest coverage ratio is earning before interest and tax by interest payment. Now, obviously, the company will pay the interest only from the earnings. So if this interest payment is high, the interest coverage ratio will reduce. Similarly, if this is high, the interest coverage ratio will increase. So this is a component and it will depend on the debt which the company has taken.
मैम आपकी वॉइस नहीं आ रही है.
सभी को वॉइस नहीं आ रही है?
मुझे आ रही है.
ज्यादातर लोगों को आ रही है. राहुल आपको शायद लॉग आउट करना पड़ेगा. सिद्धार्थ को भी आ रही है ना?
अब आ रही है.
आवाज आ रही है. सो राहुल आपको शायद करना पड़े. Debt to equity ratio, simple formula, total debt by total measures the amount of total debt capital with respect to total equity capital. So it is good also, it is bad also. So if you have a high debt to equity ratio, that means your company has good reputation, it can raise debt. However, it will also show that the interest payment would be very high. So your interest coverage ratio might reduce because of high debt. Because if the debt is high, the total interest payment is also going to be high. So that is what it was said. It's a double-edged sword. So the company has to be careful about these leverage ratios. So debt to asset, how much total assets are financial debt capital? So total debt by total assets. Financial leverage ratio is how well you have used your equity. So indicates to what extent the assets are supported by equity. So total average total asset by average total equity. So I hope all of you are writing this because I know you have already would have written in the financial statement session, but if you write it again, it will be easier for you to recollect them, or it will be easier for you to remember. So are you guys writing?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
If you write, you'll remember it for a longer time. That's the only. Now the operating ratio is how well the business is managed. You know, how well the company is using the inventory, how quickly the company is recovering the account payables, and all that is seen through the operating ratio. So it indicates the efficiency of the company's operational activity. It is also called asset management ratio, as this ratio indicates the efficiency with which the assets of the company are utilized. So you can have fixed assets turnover ratio, working capital turnover, total asset turnover ratio, inventory turnover ratio, inventory number of days, accounts receivable turnover, days sale outstanding. So fixed asset turnover, it tells you how effectively the company uses the fixed assets. Operating revenue by the total average asset. Working capital tells you, working capital turnover ratio tells you how effectively a company balances current assets with current liabilities. So revenue by average working capital. Then you have the inventory turnover ratio. How it is the complete revenue, the given amount include both fixed assets as assets. So total asset turnover, like it's a variation of your fixed assets or working capital assets turnover. So operating revenue by average total assets. Then you have inventory number of days. So it'll tell you how much time it takes you to convert your inventory into cash. So if you remember the working capital cycle, it is all about conversion of cash into cash. Cash spent into buying the inventory into work in progress into finished goods, and finished goods when sold would be converted to cash.
Yes.
So that is, it will calculate the number of days it takes to convert cash back into cash. So while the inventory turnover ratio gives you a sense of how many times a company replenishes their inventory, the inventory number of days gives a sense of how much time the company takes to convert its inventory into cash. So this will also give you an idea about your number of, how long is your working capital cycle. So 365 divided by the inventory turnover. Then account receivables. Gaurav, what are account receivables? Gaurav, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
What are account receivables?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello.
What is account receivable?
मैम आवाज नहीं आ रही है.
आवाज नहीं आ रही है.
हेलो.
आवाज आ रही है? बताइए
हेलो.
अकाउंट रिसीवेबल क्या है?
हेलो.
What are accounts receivable? No one? Okay. So my, go-to people, Arpita and Khushbu.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Arpita, what are accounts receivable?
Account receivables are the bills that are not paid to us and will be paid in
Ma'am, account receivable.
Yes. Okay. Good. Okay, so boys, see the difference. This is what happened in your mock interviews also. You went blank of all the things which we have even covered in the class. You know, so I keep on asking you questions so that you are in practice of answering when you are asked these questions. So please try, at least try. So account receivables are the bills which are not paid, or these are our debtors. Will tell you how fast can the company receive the money from the debtors. So the receivable turnover ratio indicates how many times in given period the company receives money cash from its debtors and customers. That indicates that the company collects cash more frequently. So account receivable turnover ratio is equal to revenue by average receivables. Then days sales outstanding or average collection period or days sales receivable. So they basically tells you the number of days it takes to keep that money. This will tell you what is the percentage of money you receive, whereas this will tell you how many number of days it takes you to receive that money. So the days sales outstanding ratio illustrate the average cash collection period, that is the time lag between billing and collection. पर ऐसा क्यों होता है, बिलिंग एंड कलेक्शन क्यों होता है ऐसा? What is the difference between billing and collection? Do you understand this? Anyone except for Kuntu and Arpita? What is billing and collection? Why are they different? And what do you call it in financial parlance? What is the difference between billing and collection?
Gilly.
We have seen
मैम
it in
क्वेश्चन क्या था?
billing and collection. What does it mean? And what is that? This is a little more tricky question, but if you are able to answer, it will, give you a better understanding of credit. So, what is the difference between the date of billing and the date of collection? What is it called? Anyone? Arpita, you want to try this? What is it? What will you call the difference in the date between billing and collection?
That is called credit period, maybe, I think.
Very good. I'm really impressed. Yes, it's the credit period.
Thank you.
So the company gives a credit to the debtors, right? So this happens on credit. The sales happen on credit. That means the customer is not paying upfront. The customer is being given some number of days to make this period. The same as we have in credit card. So if we purchase today, the credit card company will not ask us to pay today. It will give us a credit period. That is the collection date. Okay, so basically it tells what is the difference between billing, the day your goods are sold, and collection means when you collect this money. So this is known as the credit period, and it is a very common practice in businesses. The sale happens on credit. That means the company, the customers of the company do not pay the company immediately. They pay it after a certain number of days, and which is known as the credit period. So day sales outstanding gives you what is the credit period. Shorter the credit period, better is the collection, right? So days sales outstanding 365 divided by the receivable turnover ratio. Okay. Now these are very important. Valuation ratios are very important. Okay. So at what price it is trading on the stock exchange is compared with these valuation ratio. So first is price to sales, price to book value ratio, and price to earning ratios. Yeah. So PE is a very favorite number of many analysts. They look at the PE ratio. Okay. So price at which it is quoted in the stock exchange. Okay. So anyways, before we go into detail, can anybody think or analyze is a good PE ratio better or a small or smaller PE ratio is better? When you're trying to buy a price, what is better? Higher PE ratio, or this is also known as PE ratio. Higher PE ratio or a lower PE ratio?
Ma'am,
Yes.
average PE ratio. Average.
Average PE ratio.
Ma'am,
Yes, ma'am.
higher P ratio.
Lower.
So this is the
Ma'am, lower
price.
P ratio is
Lower PE ratio is better
Lower
because
PE ratio.
price is what is quoted in the market. Earning is what is the earning per share. So higher the earning, better would be the share. So we are doing fundamental analysis where we are looking at how is the company working, what are the operations of the company. Earnings will tell you what is the profit of the company. So if the profit of the company is high, this is basically price to earning. Price divided by earning. Earning is the denominator. So higher the denominator, lesser would be the result. Okay. And that would mean that the earnings of the company are high compared to the price of the company. So a lower PE ratio is a good share. So basically it uses the share price, the market price of the share. Valuation of the share. So price to sales ratio. This ratio compares the stock price of the company with the company sales per share. So current share price divided by sales per share. How do you calculate this sales per share? How will you calculate sales per share?
Total shares upon. नहीं, total share नीचे रहेगा मैम.
Yes.
total sales upon number of share.
Huh?
Total
Total?
sales about number of sales
Yes. Yeah. Total sale
upon number
about,
of share
by number of shares will give you sales per share.
per share.
Now, price to book value. A book value to define is the value of the share in the books of the company, right? Now, how will you calculate the value of the share? It is different from face value. Face value is the price at which the share has been issued. Over a period of time, because the company is adding the reserves and surplus to its share capital, you know, the reserves are being added to the share capital. So your share capital would keep on increasing. Okay. Then you divide by the total number of shares. Okay, that is the book value.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Khushbu, please mute yourself. I think खुशबू का ही mic fluctuate कर रहा है बहुत.
अच्छा. खुशबू ने म्यूट कर लिया अपने आप. Thank you, Khushbu.
Thank you.
Arpita, you also mute yourself. Okay. Yeah. So we calculate the book value. Book value basically means the value of the shares in the books of the company. Okay. So therefore you will add all the share capital and reserves and divide it by the number of shares, which will give you the book value. Now, market price of the share divided by the book value. Okay. So here you can see whether the share price is high or low. If the book value is high, then this ratio will be smaller. That means the market price is closer to the book value. However, if the market price is very high compared to book value, it means that the share is overpriced. Okay, so here we are also looking at share prices, but we are comparing it with the fundamental of the company. Okay, that's why it is a part of fundamental analysis. Fundamental of the company means the figures and the numbers of the company. Okay? So here we are comparing the price of the shares with various numbers in the company. So we are comparing it with sales, we are comparing it with book value, we are also comparing it with the earning. So PE ratio indicates how expensive or cheap the stock is trading at. So market price divided by EPS or earning per share. So again, earning is profit divided by the number of shares. So calculating it for one share, because the market price you are taking is for one share. So if you remember simple mathematics, it is again per would mean divided by the number of shares. This is known as earning per share. So market price is market price of shares divided by earning per share. Okay, so these are some other valuation ratios. Now, can somebody tell me dividend yield? How will you calculate dividend yield? We have seen it many times. How will you calculate dividend yield?
Ma'am, it is SP minus CP.
No, that is capital appreciation.
Yeah.
Ma'am, DPS upon current share price.
Correct. Dividend upon current DPS
Current
is
share
what?
price. Dividend per share.
Yes, correct. तो ये गूगल था या खुद याद था? हाँ, कल ही तो हमने देखा ना. This we had seen. When a customer is buying a share, he is looking at two things. One is capital appreciation and the other is dividend yield. Dividend yield is dependent on the amount of dividend the customer is paid. So DPS, dividend per share, divided by the price at which the customer has bought the share. So for comparison, you can also use index valuation. So the index valuation gives you a sense of how cheap or expensive the market is trading at PE ratio for Indian indices. So if it is 16 times to 20 times, it should be bought. Above 20 times shows that markets are overvalued. So the best time to invest in the market is when PE ratio is around 16x, below which the is an indication that the business fundamentals are not good. Means the so the share price is the share is overvalued. So when you are trying to buy a stock or a share, you will have to look at two things. You have to take a short-term view or a long-term. Now, long-term view obviously will look at the business model, the earning revision, the growth, the fundamentals of the company. Whereas short-term, you buy on euphoria. The stock market is going up, so everybody is buying. I will also buy. You can over leverage or technology obsolescence. So these are short-term views of buying a share. However, if you want a sustainable growth or proper investment, then you'll have to look at long-term view. You'll have to take a long-term view on the stock. We've also seen the macroeconomic factors also affect the investment decisions. Also, we have to be updated on the latest about the company. So if the company is going in for merger and acquisition or some management change or some spin-offs, there would be a change in the share price of the company. So Gaurav's famous example, Ruchi Soya. Yeah. So probably they would have, known that Ruchi Soya is going to be acquired by Patanjali, and probably that paid off. Okay. So not only we have to look at the share price, we also need to look at this thing, and the other information floating about the market, about the company in the market. Now, macroeconomic trends. What will macroeconomic trends encompass? What will you have to look at? Can you tell me some macroeconomic factors you have to look at before making an investment decision? Khushbu, macroeconomic factors, what are the different macroeconomic factors you have to look at?
Ma'am, taxes, savings, cost of living. Ma'am, cost of living, tax, saving, income level. Income level.
Is that a macroeconomic factor? Income level is a macroeconomic factor. No, Arpita, you want to answer that question?
Ma'am, we'll also have to look at industry trends, I think.
Cycle, very good. E, business cycle. What else? What are the macroeconomic factors affecting the entire economy? What are the factors which affect the entire economy? We have seen it in quite detail in the earlier sessions. What are the
government policy.
Yeah, yes, government policies,
ma'am.
monetary policy, business cycle. All these are
Yes, ma'am.
macroeconomic trends which we have to see
Handling, ma'am.
before. Right. So, for example, the government is shifting from a expansionary policy to a contractionary policy. That means the RBI is increasing all the rates. Right, the RBI is increasing all the rates. What will it result into?
Contractionary.
Contractionary. What does contraction mean? What does contractionary policy mean?
Government will try to limit the supply of money.
Yes.
Supply of money. So if the inflation is high, the government is trying to control inflation by reducing the interest rates. Now, how will it affect equity? How will it affect equity?
Ma'am, people will not take loan easily, and business will not open, and the employment will not generate.
Correct. So the business will not grow. So when the business is not going to grow, is it a good idea to invest in equity? Probably not.
No, ma'am. Not.
So on the other hand, the interest rates have risen. So it is better to probably invest in fixed income instruments. So all these things have to be seen before we decide to buy a stock. So macroeconomic policies, government macroeconomic policies like interest rates, inflation, business cycle, all those needs to be, the consumption pattern has to be seen before we invest. It's simple fundamental, though. If people are going to use that product, it is good to invest. If people are not going to use that product, doesn't make any sense to do the investment. Right? Also, merger and acquisition can have both positive and negative effect on a business. So you have to see that management change again, then spin-offs if the company is trying to get into some other sector and all that. So all these things have to be seen. So it's not any much different from the way a credit manager decides whether to give a loan or not, because all these things he also sees. Also, we have to look at the sectoral trend, whether the industry is going to grow. So industry growth rates, what are the regulatory changes, what is the entry of new players. So if you look at the pharmaceutical or the health sector in the last 1 year has grown exponentially because that industry is growing. On the other hand, if you look at travel industry or hotel industry or hospitality industry in general, it has reduced. It has been shrinking. So these are the things we have to look at before we decide to invest. So how many of you have heard about Warren Buffett? Have you heard about Warren Buffett?
Yes, ma'am. I've heard.
Yes,
Ma'am,
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
He's a fin expert.
Okay. Yeah. So he is an American investor who has, earned millions by investing. So he says the competitive advantage that one company has over the other company in the same industry. It's a concept popularized by Warren Buffett. He says, so one company. We have seen this also. We are, when we are analyzing a company, we also have to look at competitive advantage. So if a company has competitive advantage, it is better to invest in that. Now, discounted cash flow, we have seen in the past, it talks about the cash flow in future. However, we will discount it to take care of the inflation. So estimate the average free cash flow, estimate the growth in free cash flow, estimate future cash flow, estimate the terminal value. So basically, how much are you going to earn by investing in this share? So it could be through dividends, it could be through bonus, or rights maybe. So that is what you calculate. Okay, so here they are talking about the company. So we have seen this in quite some detail in the past about discounted cash flow for a company. So we estimate the future cash flow and then we discount it to the present value to see if it is a profitable business or not. So free cash flow is cash from operating activities minus capital expenditure. So you take an average because account cyclic nature of the business and average out extreme cash flows. So you can also compare it with the share price. Total present value of cash flow divided by total number of shares. However, as we have seen, discounted cash flow is an assumption. So it is not actually a true analysis or true valuation of the business of the company. So it has its own disadvantages. So this discounted cash flow is based on a lot of assumptions. A leeway for modeling error is allowed and the intrinsic value is expressed in the range. So if a stock price is lower than the intrinsic value band, stock is undervalued. If the stock price is within intrinsic value band, stock is considered.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes,
Intrinsic value, can you please explain?
Intrinsic value is the actual value of the share. So, so we know. So we have seen some values of the shares. So for example, we have seen the face value. Then we have seen the book value. We have seen the market value. Now, which is the true indicator of the actual value of this? So we know that market value is not only dependent on the fundamental of the company, it is also dependent on the sentiment of people in the market. Okay, so that is not a true representation. Then face value can change. Face value is actually at what value the share has been issued. However, we know that the company is growing and the value of the total share capital of the company is increasing because you're adding your reserves to it. Now that divided by the number of share is the intrinsic value. The actual value, the what to say,
Value.
the clear value of this share is the intrinsic value. So you have to compare the intrinsic value with the market price. If the market price is too high compared to intrinsic value, that means this is it is overpriced.
Overpriced.
So if the share is if the share is if intrinsic value is lower, that means it's the right time to buy the share because it is can be compared. It will grow in the future. Sooner or later, the market would realize that it's a good share. So if the stock price is lower than the intrinsic value band, stock is undervalued. If the stock price is within the intrinsic value band, the stock considered to be a hold. If the stock prices are above the intrinsic value, the stock is overvalued and actually it should not be bought. And if you have these shares, you should sell it before the market realize that this is an overvalued share. Okay. So we've seen this disadvantage of discounted cash flow. It is based on assumption. It requires to forecast, highly sensitive to terminal growth rate, requires constant update, and highly skewed for long term. Because in the long term, the actual cash flow might not give you the right picture. Now the business model and the stock price business model is a revenue. So for a long-term investor, it is important to focus more on the business model. In the short term, stock prices can get affected by market fluctuations. Understanding the business model helps the investor to decide whether to stay put in the stock during the bear phase. So we have seen bear phases when the market is down. So basically, if you look at Satyam's case study, so I don't know how many of you remember, but if you look, it's not Satyam, sorry. Yesterday we were looking at Wipro. So if you look at the Wipro case study, you see that the share was the price of the share reduced in 2012 and 2013, but still it gave value in 2015. Okay. So if somebody had bought it in 2011 and sold it in 2012, probably he would have made a loss because these are cyclic things which keep on happening in the market. So we know there can be a bull phase or a bear phase. Bear phase is when the stock market prices are falling down. So it can be. Anything you want to say? Anyways, so long-time investors do not get affected too much by. Just give me a moment. By the bear phase, because they know that now if it is a bear phase, the bull phase will also come, and if the business model of the company is good, it will give them returns, maybe not in the short term, probably in the longer term. So they keep on. Just give me a moment. Holding the share. So understanding the business model helps the investor to decide whether to stay put in the stock during the bear phase. Bear market act as a value creator for companies with sound business model. So there must have been a lot of ups and downs in the market, but if the share is good, you can keep invested. So that is why we say, fundamental analysis is very important because you're not letting the market force decide whether to buy the share or not. You're making your decision based on the fundamental of the company. So these are two approaches, top down and bottom up. So we have seen this in various other studies also. So top down, you start from the bigger picture, then you come to the you come down to the company. Whereas bottom up, you start from the company and then you decide. Then you look at the the company valuation. Okay, so top-down approach consider the big picture of the economy, industry, and so they start from considering the bigger picture of the economy, industry, and company. Then they consider the macroeconomic factors. Then they consider the sector and the company. So you can see it is a inverted triangle, inverted prism. I hope all of you understand a prism. Prism is a solid triangle. So the bottom down approach has a broader base up, which is it considered the bigger picture of economy, industry, and company. Then it considered the just give me a moment. If I can get a board, I'll just see. I can explain to you better. Just give me a moment. It is they start from a broader base and then it tapers down, whereas bottom up is from the smaller thing, from the company to the bigger picture, right? So these are two approaches you can take to analyze the company. So top-down approach, consider the big picture of the economy, industry, and company. Consider macroeconomic factors like GDP, unemployment, inflation, and consider macroeconomic factors and identify the growth sector in economy and focus on top companies from the sector. Whereas bottom is overlooks the big picture and focus on companies' specific reasons. How the company is going to perform, whereas top-down approach focuses on how the economy is going to perform. It is bottom is more focused on the company, whereas it is top-down is more focused on the macroeconomic factors. Bottom-up analyzes only company valuation. Now, these are some factors on which your investment style will depend on. Your risk profile, return expectation, consistency of return, and investment horizon. So do you guys understand it? What does it mean? What are we talking about? What would risk profile mean?
Risk profile would refer to the extent of risk we are able to take and our approach toward risk. That how we'll react to that. Next is what?
Return expectation.
How much return we are expecting? For example, we are expecting high returns. Then we should also be okay with the amount of risk we are taking.
Correct.
That is it. And if we are not okay with the risk, then we can't expect much returns.
Correct.
And what is next?
Consistency. Of return.
That what interval we are expecting between our returns. For example, if we expect a regular return, then we need to invest in fixed income instruments. And if we are okay with some ups and downs, crest and trough of the investment, then we should invest in equities as well.
Okay. What was investment horizon mean?
That is what I wanted to ask.
The investment horizon is nothing but the time period. Okay. So how does time period affect your investment decision? What role does time have in your investment decision?
I'm thinking how to express what I want to say.
Khushbu, you want to try? How is time, what effect time has on your investment decision?
Ma'am, if I want more return, then I have to invest in equities. If I want to protect my,
investment in equity. I'm talking about investment in equity.
I want to protect my money, then I will invest in fixed income instruments.
We are not talking about fixed income. We are only talking about equity. So you have to invest in equity. If your investment horizon is short, what kind of shares will you pick up? Okay, let me put it this way. What relation does investment horizon has with risk in equity?
If we invest in short term, then the risk is more.
The risk is more. Shorter term,
It shows an inverse relation.
the risk is more. So if I have a shorter investment horizon, I should pick up shares of well-established companies, right? If my investment horizon is big or large, then I can pick up little risky or small companies which will grow in the future. So we have seen the example of Wipro in the earlier session, and we have seen how Wipro has grown, but it is not grown in one day. It is years. Take more risk. Just give me a moment. You know, I've logged out. I've been logged off my LMS. Just give me a moment. Okay. So I hope all of you can see this. Yeah. So two specific investors' objective while investing in shares. One, he's looking at capital appreciation. The second is he's looking at maybe dividend. Okay. So growth investment obviously would be for newer companies or riskier companies, whereas value investment would focus on well-established company where the customer is getting value. So risk in growth investments is more than value investment. Here the objective of the customer is growth. Here it is safety and maybe some regular dividend. Okay? So the next slide will tell you the difference between growth investment versus value investment. So growth investment focuses on future price of the company with less emphasis on current price. Looks for companies trading less than its intrinsic value at the moment. So growth investment looks for companies which are outperformance, looks for consistent growth. So here they are looking for consistency. Therefore, the risk is less. Growth obviously invest in relatively young and mid-cap companies. So if you look at 25-year-old, he will not grow. No, he will not grow. His height will not increase because he's the optimum height. Okay. So here the probability of growth is very less. Whereas if you look at an 11-year-old, you know that this person is going to grow more. So growth is for relatively young and mid-cap companies, whereas value is for large cap companies. I hope all of you remember CAP. Siddharth, what is CAP?
Yes, ma'am.
Not Siddharth, Devesh. Devesh, what is CAP we are mentioning here? What is CAP? ये कौन सी टोपी है? Devesh, can you hear us? Huh? No idea. Okay, Siddharth, you want to try? What is the CAP you're talking about here? You've seen it many times in the class. What is the CAP you're talking about? What is this? Siddharth, remember? Forgotten.
Forgot.
Forgotten. All of you need to read. regularly. Except for
It refers to
Arpita.
the.
What is
It
cap?
refers.
What does it refer to? Cap here refers to?
What, ma'am?
Go ahead.
Capital. Cap refers to capital.
Volume of company.
Not volume of company. Yes, Arpita.
Volume of company in terms of money or capital. It causes.
Yes, capital, market capitalization.
Cap is market capitalization.
Yeah, how do you calculate market capitalization?
I think it is number of shares, share into share value.
Yes, share, yeah, market value of the share. Price per share into multiplied by the number of shares. That is the market capitalization. So I think we have discussed at least this concept at least 3-4 times in the class. And still people have forgotten. Market capitalization refers to the value of shares of the company in the market. So large cap companies are older companies which have probably more number of shares, and the share value is also high, whereas mid cap companies are companies in the mid value. Small caps are newer companies with lesser share value and maybe lesser number of shares. So two components to capitalization, to market capitalization: the share value and the so I have I don't know, I have arranged for a board, but I don't know if you will be able to see it. I'll, in the break time, I will try to see if I can use the board for you to maybe
Ma'am, I
remember
have a
the
question.
Yes, Arpita.
Ma'am, newer companies could also be large cap, no?
Newer companies difficult to be large cap for two reasons. Because the number of shares is less. So we have seen that when a company comes up, there is always a struggle between equity and debt. So a newer company, because it might take a lot of time to generate profit for its shareholders, does not want to have a lot of equity capital, right? So the number of shares would be limited, also because the company is new. The share price of the company also would be lesser, right? So smaller companies or newer companies are small cap companies for two reasons. One, the market price has not achieved the full potential. Second, the number of shares are low. Okay, so small companies are those companies. So if you look at Wipro, 20 years back or 23 years back, it was a small cap company because the company had just started, they had just issued their share. However, now if we have seen how many times they have issued bonus, they have split the shares, so the number of shares has increased and also the share price has increased. So therefore, it's a large cap company. Okay, so large cap companies are less risky compared to mid cap or small cap companies. So growth investments are willing to take more risk with excellent price volatility, low risk with consistent growth. Now, mid cap companies or young companies obviously are low dividend paying companies, whereas value investments is high dividend paying companies. So these are two approaches of investing in the share market. What are you looking at? Whether you're looking at getting dividend or you're looking at capital appreciation. Okay. Then fundamental analysis is on the fundamental of the companies, whereas technical analysis is on the share price movement of the company. So both are required to be done. So analysts also do technical analysis before investing to find out what is the right price for investment or what is the right time for investment. So technical analysis is an attempt to predict the stock prices based on past trading pattern. So technical analysts believe that in the short term, psychological factors drive the stock price, which is correct also. So probably if you look at now, the market is going down. Nothing fundamental has changed. The fundamentals are still the same, but the sentiments, or the psychological factors are changing because of the rising number of the COVID. So there are psychological factors which are driving the stock prices now. Or they are driving the stock prices down now because people are very uncertain as to what future holds. So technical analysis is a methodology which uses price and volume for forecasting the direction of share price. It is widely used for short-term day traders and not by long-term investors. So technical analysis is more for short-term, whereas fundamental analysis is long-term, because you are looking at the company rather than the share price. Whereas technical analysis is focusing on the share price, which share is undervalued, when it's the right time to buy. That is what they are looking at. However, technical analysis can be complementary to fundamental analysis for calibrating entry and exit points. So, for example, you have identified that this is a good company to buy, and then you decide what is the right price to be paid for this share. In forex market, use of technical analysis is more widespread than fundamental analysis, right? So it makes sense as well. So fundamental analysis based on the assumption the market discounts everything, price moves in trend, history tend to repeat itself. So there are some assumptions in technical analysis, whereas fundamental analysis is more based on the facts and figures. So technical analysts believe that the company's fundamental, along with broader economic factors and the market psychology, are all priced into stock. So this removes the need for considering the major factors separately and leaves only the price to be analyzed. Price is a result of demand and supply. We have seen this in economics. Price is based on demand and supply. Higher the demand, higher would be the price. More is the supply, lesser would be the price. Prices move in trends. So all major moves in market is an outcome of a trend. This means that after a trend has been established, the future price movement is more likely to be in the same direction as the trend. So for example, when we look at the market, so they either rise or they fall. When they rise, most of the shares rise. When they fall, most of the shares fall. History tends to repeat itself. So the repetitive nature of price movement is attributed to market psychology. Market participants tend to provide a consistent reaction to similar market stimuli over time. Technical analysis uses charts pattern to analyze market movements and understand trends. So if you're looking at a share price, you go and do some analysis, you will see the company would quote the 52-week high, the 52-week low. So these are also data point which help the analyst to make a decision. So how low can the stock go, or how high can the stock go? Because the history will repeat itself. So trend is the general direction in which the security or market is headed. So you can see a diagram here, for example. So the price is actually rising. Some place, yeah, it falls down, but it again rises. So the trend in the above diagram is up. However, it is not very easy to depict the trend in a diagram. For example, if you look at this is quite confusing. So your trend analysis can be an uptrend. So in technical analysis, it is the movement of highs and lows that constitute a trend. An uptrend is classified as a series of higher highs and higher lows. Downward trend is one of the lower lows and lower highs. So here the volatility is very high. The upward trend, if you look at, the volatility is high. The share is pricing, the share price is rising, then falling down, rising and falling down. So high low, higher highs. then it can be horizontal trend. That means it is not moving too much. There's a little movement or down in the peaks and trough. It is sideways or horizontal. Horizontal is parallel, so it is the share price is almost remaining the same. So trend can be classified as long-term trend, intermediate trend, or a short-term trend. So in terms of stock market, a major trend or long-term trend is generally categorized as long-lasting, longer than a year. An intermediate trend is considered to last between 1 year and 3 months. A short trend is anything less than a month. A long-term trend is composed of several intermediate trends which often move against the direction of a major trend. So trend length is the time period for this which the trend has remained. In a major trend is upward and there is a downward correction in price movement, followed by a continuation of uptrend. The correction is considered to be an intermediate trend. The short-term trend are components of both major and intermediate trends. To identify long-term trends, weekly charts or daily charts spanning a 5-year period are used. And daily data charts are best used when analyzing both intermediate and short-term trends. So basically, technical analysts look at the share price movement and then they see what is the trend, whether the share price is going up, what is the, how far it falls, how up it goes, and all that, to analyze when is the right time to buy the share or whether you should buy the share or not. And at what price should you buy the share. So this is done by drawing trend line. So trend line is a simple charting technique that adds a line to a chart to represent the trend in the market or a stock. These lines are used to clearly show the trend and also used in identification of trend reversals. So trend क्या है जो चल रहा है, reversal क्या है if it is moving in the opposite direction. So an upward trend line is drawn at the lows of an upward trend. This line represents the support the stock has every time it moves from a high to a low. So this type of trend line helps traders to anticipate the point at which a stock price will begin moving upwards again. A downward trend line is drawn at the highs of the downward trends. Okay. So should we take a break now? Or a little later?
Ma'am, little later. We'll take at 11:30 or 40.
Okay, so let us look at the volumes and then maybe.
Yeah, ma'am. 145.
Then you might also have a channel. A channel or channel lines is the addition to two parallel trends that act as strong area ends of support and resistance. So you can see here. This is the trend. And these are the channels. So the upward trend line connects a series of high, while the lower trend line connects a series of low. A channel can slope upward or downwards or sideways. Traders will expect a given security to trade between the two line levels of support and resistance until it breaks beyond one of the levels. So during breakout, traders can expect a sharp move in the direction of the break. So if it is a upward break, upward channel, then it will go upward. If it is a downward channel, it will go downwards. So channels are mainly used to illustrate important terms of support and resistance. So let us understand support and resistance. Support is a price level through which the stock or market seldom falls. So this is the support, for example. Resistance, on the other hand, is a price level that a stock or market seldom surpasses. So this is the resistance. Resistance मतलब इससे ऊपर grow नहीं करेगा. Support का मतलब इससे नीचे fall नहीं करेगा. So these are, if you look at support and resistance, support is the minimum, resistance is the highest, the maximum. So support and resistance levels are the levels at which a lot of traders are willing to buy the stock or sell it. So when these trend lines are broken, the supply and demand and the psychology behind the stock movement is thought to have shifted and new levels of support resistance will be established. Right? So once our resistance or support level is broken, its role is reversed. If the price falls below support level, the level that level will become the resistance level. If the price rises above the resistance level, it will also become support. So volume show move with the should